But today, if we look at the Declaration, which we're celebrating 250 years this summer, a lot of people have very different ideas about our founding, that the founding fathers were irreligious or secular. They wanted a separation of church and state. They were atheists, agnostics, deists. This is the modern narrative. Again, I say modern because all you have to do is go back a generation or two, and we used to know and teach things different. For example, Clinton Rossiter was the professor at Cornell University who was over the history department. He wrote a book called The Seed Time of the Republic. What he did is identify, he said there really were 6 voices that came up with the main ideas that led to America becoming a nation. And he goes through the book and identifies those 6 individuals and kind of lays out his framework for the argument. But the 6 people he said were Benjamin Franklin, Richard Bland, the Reverend Thomas Hooker, the Reverend Roger Williams, the Reverend John Wise, and the Reverend Jonathan Mayhew. He said those are the people that came up with the majority of the ideas that led to America becoming a nation. Now, you don't have to be real smart to look at that list and be like, well, there seems to be some similarities in some of those guys, right? Because 4 of them are literally pastors. Now, this is a very well-credentialed academic from a different generation who said, let's just see what's there. Where does the information lead us? And to give you a sample of why this used to be very obvious, if we took somebody like John Wise was a pastor in Ipswich, Massachusetts. He pastored in the late 1600s through the early 1700s. Now, that's way before the founding era, yes, but also one of the things noteworthy about him, like many pastors, he had published sermons. His last set of published sermons came out in 1717. It's a collection of his sermons, but in there's 2 specific sermons that have some very significant content and language. In fact, one of the sermons, he said that taxation without representation is tyranny. In the same sermon, he went on and said that God's preferred form of government is the consent of the governed. Well, then the second sermon, he said that all men are created equal and have certain inalienable rights granted to them by their Creator. Now, if you're not familiar with the Declaration, you don't know how similar these sentences are. This is verbatim language from the Declaration,